Hey y'all, howdy, welcome to One for the Books. I'm Sandy Broadwell, and today we're going to dive into the Goodreads Choice Awards 2025. I did 2 videos already this month predicting what the Goodreads Choice Awards were going to be for both the fantasy and sci-fi category. So now we're going to do an overview of which ones I got right and which ones I got wrong. We'll go pretty quick through the fantasy, but then I want to do a deep dive on all of the new sci-fi releases of 2025. I have crunched the numbers and I'm going to pitch their plots to you in a short couple of sentences a piece so that you can decide if any of these books look good to you. So that's the premise. Let's dive in. So if you watched my fantasy predictions video, which I will link down below, these were my top 12 fantasy predictions. And I'm happy to say that all of these did appear on the Goodreads Choice Awards. However, not all of them appeared in the fantasy category. So I have 3 red stars on here, which are on A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, and The Bewitching. None of those appeared in the fantasy category, even though they did appear in the Goodreads Choice Awards this year. So that was interesting. And I have another page of fantasy predictions that we'll get into in a moment. So I did basically a top 24 predictions, but my top 12 all made it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards. If you count the 3 that were not in the fantasy category, then I got 16 out of my 24 predictions correct, which is a 67% success rate, which I feel pretty good about. If you only count the ones that I predicted for fantasy that actually were in the fantasy category, then I got 13 out of 24, which is a 54% success rate. So still not terrible, I don't think, but definitely not great. And for these, the green check marks just indicate the books that I have already read. Diving in, A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping and Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales both ended up in the romantasy category, which I totally see A Witch's Guide being categorized as a romantasy, because to me it's like a cozy fantasy romance. It is a bit more surprising to me that Emily Wilde would be in the romantasy category, because her other books, I believe, have been in fantasy, and I do not consider the romance between Emily and Wendell to be the primary plot of this book. Yes, they are getting married in book 3. Their love story, I feel like, really happened in the first 2 books, and this book is more about establishing Wendell's reign as the Fae King, and really I don't think that the emphasis of this book at all was on the romance. It was about like overthrowing the evil Fae Queen and like the subplots around that. So very surprised this wasn't in the fantasy category, but Goodreads is unpredictable. I feel good about the rest of these books being in the fantasy category. I still stick by what I said the first time around, which was that I think this will be a runoff between Wind and Truth and Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil as the contenders for the winner. For my second page of fantasy predictions, I did much worse, but I said in the predictions video that I was pretty iffy on all of these picks because they either had a low number of ratings, a low average rating, or their release date was a little too soon for all the hype to have built up. So for the second page, we have The Incandescent by Emily Tesh, The Everlasting by Alexi Harrow, which I'm actually currently reading, and I'm about halfway through that book right now, so I went ahead and put the green check on it. And then Brigands and Bread Knives and The Strength of the Few, both released today, November 11th. The day that the Goodreads Choice Awards launched. I still find that super bizarre that a book that almost no one could have possibly read yet, except for like advanced reader copies, are making it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards, but I do know that these books are sequels and they have big fan bases from the popularity of the first books in the series. So I get that Goodreads includes the people who click like want to read on a lot of these books as part of their calculations. I just wish they were a bit more transparent about how that actually goes down. I have not voted in the fantasy category yet because I'm really hoping that I get to read The Strength of the Few before the category closes. I do have a hold on it on my Libby app. It currently says that there's like multiple months wait before I'll get a chance to read it, but I know that libraries often add multiple copies and that significantly reduces the wait time on like early new releases. Hopefully I'll be able to read The Strength of the Few before the Goodreads Choice Awards voting ends, because I do think that has the potential to be one of my favorite books of the year and to unseat what my vote might currently be. I'll just have to wait and see on that. Brigands and Bread Knives, I do want to read and is on my TBR, but I don't think that that will unseat any of the books that I'm currently thinking about voting for, so I'm not as anxious to read it before the Goodreads Choice Awards is over. All that being said, those are my predictions. That means there were 7 books on the fantasy category that I did not predict, and those books were Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber, Thief of Night by Holly Black, Red City by Marie Lu, A Resistance of Witches by Morgan Ryan. Now, I had heard of all of these books. I may have only heard of them once or twice or saw their covers on the internet. I didn't really hear much about these books, so it doesn't surprise me that these kind of slipped under my radar for the Goodreads Choice Awards. There are 3 more books that made it to the fantasy category this year that I'd absolutely never heard of before, and that was The Sirens by Amelia Hart, which if I had known Amelia Hart had a new book this year, I probably would have included it in my predictions. She is the author of Wayward, which I think won a Goodreads Choice Awards category last year or the year before, but she's just not an author that I've been paying close attention to. Then we have The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown and King's Sorrow by Joe Hill. I read through all the descriptions of the books that I had not predicted just to see what they were about. And of the ones that I haven't read or didn't predict, King's Sorrow is actually the one that is grabbing my attention the most. It sounds like it's sort of like a deal with the devil sort of plot line, except it's a dragon. I think it sounds really cool, so I'm definitely adding that one to my want to read list. That's it for fantasy. So again, we're going to dive into sci-fi, and for sci-fi I'm going to do a little bit different in that I am going to go through my predictions like I did for fantasy, but then I want to just read you my personal synopsis of what the descriptions are for each of these books, talk about their average rating and the number of ratings they've received, just so that we can kind of like chew on what sci-fi is looking like in 2025. Because if you watched my predictions video, you know that sci-fi is a struggling category in a lot of ways. It doesn't have a lot of readers, and the books that have been releasing the last few years, at least the ones that have made it onto the Goodreads Choice Awards, haven't been that appealing to your standard sci-fi reader. A lot of what makes it onto the Sci-Fi Goodreads Choice Awards is often more like literary fiction that has like a speculative element, and it's really not very sci-fi. And I want to mention too, before we get into what my personal predictions were, I asked all of my viewers to list their predictions for the sci-fi category in the comments of my last video, and the one that really caught my attention that someone had mentioned was The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. I did not realize that TJ Klune had a new release this year, but if I had, I definitely would have included him as a Goodreads Choice Award prediction because he has won a Goodreads Choice Award in the past, and his books are very popular. His new book this year is called The Bones Beneath My Skin, and it was supposed to be some sort of like sci-fi thriller. And so when I saw that prediction in my comments, I was like, oh, totally, like that'll definitely be on there. And it's not. So I feel like this might be the biggest snub of the year, that TJ Klune's new book is not anywhere on the Goodreads Choice Awards. Maybe it's just too like genre blendy. It was listed as like fantasy, sci-fi, and thriller on the Goodreads like categorization for the book, and so yeah, maybe it just didn't fall neatly into any one category. I don't know. For the ones that I predicted for the sci-fi category, I had a 50-50 success rate. I only predicted 10 books for sci-fi because I personally could not even think of any sci-fi books that had come out this year, save for a few. I actually had to do some Google searches to even come up with 10 predictions, which I think is a testament to how lackluster sci-fi new releases are. My primary prediction was that The Dream Hotel would win because that was the biggest name sci-fi book that I could think of. It's kind of a dystopian. Of the ones that I predicted, The Dream Hotel, Death of the Author, When the Moon Hits Your Eye, Automatic Noodle, and Shroud all made it. The ones that didn't make it, All the Water in the World, which was like a cli-fi, The Third Rule of Time Travel, which this one I think was the most surprising to me of my own predictions, just because I feel like I had seen it on several Goodreads lists, and Goodreads usually, the books that they have promoted throughout the year tend to make it on the Goodreads Choice Awards. So surprised to not see that one. Cold Eternity by S.A. Barnes, the other Adrian Tchaikovsky new release this year, Bee Speaker, and the new Kim Liu, All That We See or Seem, did not make it. So let's talk about the ones that did. Also, just want to say I have read absolutely zero of the books on the Sci-Fi Goodreads Choice Awards this year. Not surprising based on everything I've already said in this and the last video, but still disappointing. Last year I'd only read one book and I wanted to do better. So I did a whole reading vlog where I was reading different books from the sci-fi category in the Goodreads Choice Awards. That was really fun, but I don't even know if there's like 3 books I want to read out of this category. So I'm still on the fence about whether I'm going to do that or not. You'll find out when I do or do not post that video. So as you may or may not realize, every time you go to the Goodreads Choice Awards and click on a category, the books will be in a different order. It scrambles them basically every time you reload the page, I guess so that it doesn't give like priority or like recency bias of like the first one's always like the first one that you see, which is great, but it makes it hard to film about them if you are trying to like screen capture. So I'm just gonna go through these in the order that they were when I looked at them earlier, and they might be different when you look at the category yourself. So the first one is called The Once and Future Me. It has a 3.65 average rating and only 1,600 ratings. This is about a woman who wakes up in a psychiatric hospital in the 1950s and doesn't remember her past. She's torn between visions that say she's a spy from the future on an important mission, or a man claiming to be her husband who wants her to get better. Then we have a book called Dissolution, which has a 4.02 average rating and 3,600 ratings. A woman is dealing with her husband's slow loss of memory when she finds out his memories aren't being lost, they're being stolen. She dives into his mind to try and uncover the hidden truths of his past that are worth stealing. The next book is called I Think We've Been Here Before, which has a 4.01 average rating and 6,100 total ratings. This is the story of one family as they cope with the news that a cosmic blast is set to end life on Earth in a matter of months. But all the while, they feel that this is something they remember happening before. It is a heartwarming reflection on life and death. That one is the first one that actually sounds a little bit interesting to me. The Once and Future Me I had on my want to read list, but it has a pretty low average rating. This I Think We've Been Here Before I definitely had never heard of, but it does sound pretty intriguing and has a pretty decent rating. Hamajang Luck is next, and that one definitely, in my mind, wins best cover of this category. I really love the art on the front, and I think it tells an interesting story in and of itself. But it only has a 3.6 average rating and 3,500 ratings on Goodreads. This is about 2 friends who previously betrayed each other who have to learn to trust each other again in order to pull off one last job, bringing down a trillionaire tech god. It's pitched as Blade Runner meets Ocean's 8. I think that sounds really cool. I'm a little scared off by the low average rating, so if you've read this book and you thought it was good, please pitch it to me and tell me why I should read it. The next one is called The Book of Lost Hours. It has a 4.15 average rating and 6,700 ratings total. This is about a girl who grows up in a library where the books are filled with the memories of the dead, until one day she learns government agents are infiltrating the library to destroy books and reshape history. It explores time, memory, and what we sacrifice to protect those we love. Next up, we have The Merge, which definitely has a very like lit fic cover in my mind. But this has a 4.19 average rating, but only 230 ratings. So like The Strength of the Few and Brigands and Bread Knives that we talked about earlier, this one came out today. So the fact that it's on here just means that its marketing budget was pretty high, I think, because this is also, I believe, a debut novel. And this one is pitched as a new experimental technology allows 2 minds to be blended in one body. It follows people who choose this, including a woman trying to save her mother from Alzheimer's and a father who wants to save his daughter from addiction. They go to recover from the merge in a rehab facility and start to question if everything is as it seems. Next up is Local Heavens, which has a 4.13 average rating and 502 ratings. Again, not surprising that this book has so few ratings because it is a fairly new release. I will say, if I do not end up reading any of these books before the Goodreads Choice Awards is over, that Local Heavens will be the one that I vote for, because I follow this author on AuthorTube on YouTube, and she is just a lovely human being, and I love watching her writing content. So even though this book doesn't actually sound very interesting to me, I want to make sure that I support her because I think she's a lovely human being. So The Local Heavens is a Great Gatsby retelling in which the rich flaunt tech-enhanced bodies to cheat death. Nick is a cyberspace hacker sent to investigate the secrets of the charismatic and alluring Gatsby, but gets tangled in the affairs of the elite and must reckon with his own ethics and morals. So again, I liked the story of the Great Gatsby, but I mostly liked it because my high school English teacher was interesting and led us through interesting discussions about it, but I don't know that like a cyberpunk retelling of Gatsby sounds that interesting to me. I love that that exists out there in the world, and again, I will vote for this if I don't end up reading anything else in the category. Next up is The Poppy Fields, which has a 3.66 average rating and 24,700 ratings. So definitely one of the more popular books. I had never seen this before, or if I did, I definitely just glazed over it because I did not know this was sci-fi. It definitely does not have a sci-fi looking cover, and again, this is more lit ficky than sci-fi-y. But the pitch is an experimental treatment center opens in California that allows those suffering from grief to sleep through their pain and awaken healed. It follows the journey of 4 individuals on the way to the facility and the secrets and mysteries that led them on this voyage. That honestly sounds like an absolute snooze fest to me, but this is by the same author of The Measure, which I know was a very popular book several years ago, and I actually have The Measure on my shelf right here, so I do want to read that book eventually. This one definitely doesn't sound nearly as interesting to me as that one did. Next up is The Compound, which is the one I am most upset to see on this list because this to me it should have definitely been in the general fiction category. The speculative element of it is so lame. But this one also has by far the most ratings of any book on the sci-fi list this year. It has a 3.58 average rating, but 60,700 ratings. So yeah, 60,000. Like, even if only 10% of the people who read this book go to the sci-fi category, they see the one book that they've read and they vote for it, even if they didn't like it that much, like, it's easily going to blow all the others out of the water. Sci-fi just does not have the readership to stand up to a general fiction book that had 60,000 readers. So that's very sad, but that's the name of the game. Next up is Salt Crop by Yumi Kitase, and I should have thought of this when I was doing my sci-fi predictions because her books have been on the Goodreads Choice Awards in the sci-fi category the last 2 years in a row. The first one was Deep Sky, the second one was The Stardust Grail, and The Stardust Grail was one of the books that I read for my Sci-Fi Choice Awards reading vlog last year, and it was extremely mid. So I do not think I will pick up any more Yumi Kitase books. Never say never, but yeah, it doesn't sound that good to me. But I didn't enjoy her writing. I thought it seemed pretty amateurish. This one in particular is less sci-fi and more cli-fi, so I'm even less interested. But this one has a 3.93 average rating and only 750 ratings. Again, this is one that came out in September, so I don't think she will do as well this year on the Goodreads Choice Awards as she has in previous years. But the pitch for this one is the eldest of 3 sisters goes missing while researching a cure for failing crops all over the world. The younger 2 sisters go looking for her and uncover secrets about what she knew and the corporations who disappeared her. Then we have Automatic Noodle, which has a 3.84 average rating and 7,400 ratings. This one I believe is a novella and was one of the ones that I predicted. This one is pitched as food service bots open their own restaurant and have to find out who is review bombing their new establishment before their ratings plummet and they have to close down. So it's a cozy fantasy. I do love the color scheme on the cover, but I think the robots themselves look a little goofy. It seems cute, I'm just not in the mood for cute when it comes to sci-fi right now. Next is These Memories Do Not Belong to Us. It has a 3.61 average rating and about 1,100 ratings. Again, these are all as of November 11th, the day that I'm filming this. This one is pitched as, in a future authoritarian state, each person is implanted with a mind bank, a device that records memories and can transfer them between minds. When a man inherits the mind bank of his deceased mother, who has memories of the time before the authoritarian takeover, he tries to share it with the world despite the risk to his life. Most of these just sound so mid to me. Like, I get that they could be really good. So Please, if you've read any of these books and you really enjoyed them, please tell me to read them and tell me why down in the comments below. Then we have Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. This has a 4.01 average rating and 14,500 ratings total. I attempted to read this back in like February, I think, when it first came out, and I got about halfway through it, but it was just too depressing for me. It was very lit-ficky, and I liked the story within a story that was happening, but not the actual overall plot. This is about a disabled author that has hit rock bottom and decides to switch tracks and write a sci-fi book about robots. What follows changes her life and blurs the lines between fiction and reality. Then we have Shroud by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the highest rated sci-fi book. No, second highest. This is the second highest rated sci-fi book in the category. It has a 4.21 average rating and about 6,000 ratings. The summary is: two asset strippers crash land on an inhospitable and pitch black moon named Shroud. They're unable to contact their orbiting ship and running out of time. Their grueling journey across the planet puts them in the path of the planet's dominant species. And it's pitched as a sci-fi horror. So I think that one actually sounds really good. I've read one other book by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which was Children of Time. I think that is probably his most popular book. I started to read the second book in that series, which is more of like a companion novel than like a following sequel. And I only got about 10% of the way into it, and I just wasn't that interested, so I set it aside. But I am definitely interested to check out other Adrian Tchaikovsky books. So that would definitely be a contender if I decide to read books in this category this year. Then we have The Dream Hotel, which has a 3.61 average rating and 27,300 ratings overall. This was the one that I had predicted to win in my predictions video because I did not know The Compound was going to be listed as sci-fi, which again has over double that number of ratings. The description is: agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull aside a woman and tell her that the data from her dreams says she will soon commit a crime. She's taken to a retention center that is filled with other dreamers, but the shifting rules of the facility mean that none of them are ever let go, eventually putting her on a collision course with the company that's stolen her freedom. That one actually sounds a little bit intriguing, but it has a pretty low average rating, so I don't know that it actually is. 5 left. The next one is Of Monsters and Mainframes, which has a 4.13 average rating and 5,800 ratings. It is pitched as a mix of sci-fi and pulp horror, and this is told from the perspective of an interstellar passenger shuttle called the Demeter, who learns that her passengers are getting plucked off by a vampire who snuck aboard. Demeter must team up with a motley crew of monstrous passengers in order to face down pure evil, Dracula. So definitely up on the pulpy side of that. I do love the kind of reimagining of the Voyage of the Demeter. If you ever read Dracula by Bram Stoker, that is, I think, one of the coolest parts of the book itself is Dracula slowly picking off one by one all of the passengers on the Demeter in his voyage across the sea. So absolutely love the creativity there, that the main character is actually the vessel itself, but I don't know that this plot synopsis is actually grabbing me that much. Then we have The Memory Collectors, which has a 3.94 average rating and 6,100 ratings overall. The pitch is: a new technology allows people to travel back in time to a single hour of their past. 4 strangers travel back to the hour that shattered their lives forever. But despite promises that they can't change the future, they get stuck in the past and learn deadly secrets about the events of that day. That one sounds, I don't know, I'm just never attracted to like super mystery plot lines, so that one just sounds kind of boring to me. Third to last, we have the first of 2 books by John Scalzi, which made it onto the list this year. I knew Adrian Tchaikovsky had 2 books that released this year, which is why I had both of his books in my predictions. If I had known John Scalzi had 2 books that came out this year, I would have also had that on my prediction, but the only one I had actually heard about prior was When the Moon Hits Your Eye, and that one has a 3.79 average rating and 14,400 ratings overall. And the pitch for this one is: overnight, the moon is inexplicably turned into cheese. It follows a variety of characters all over the planet as they deal with their new absurd reality. So that sounds super dumb. I'm not interested in that at all. The next one by John Scalzi is actually book number 7 in the Old Man's War series. Now, I have not read any books in this series. I did recently pick up The Old Man's War out of a little free library. And my husband told me he read this book years and years ago and that he really liked it. So it is on my eventual sci-fi TBR, but I definitely will not be picking up a book 7. The Shattering Piece has a 4.3 average rating, making it the highest rated book of all of the sci-fi nominees this year, and it has 3,600 ratings total. I didn't want to look up the description of book 7 since it is potentially spoilers for the rest of the series. But the first book, Old Man's War, is about a war between humanity and alien races fighting for the very few habitable planets in the galaxy far, far away from Earth. And then finally, the last book on the Goodreads Choice Awards this year is Luminous, which has a 3.63 average rating and 1,800 ratings overall. This one has potentially the most lit ficky looking cover of all of them. Set in a reunified Korea, robots have integrated into society as second-class citizens despite their humanity. One robot is raised alongside 2 children as a sibling, but the siblings are separated and haunted by the memory of their lost robot brother. They must reunite and uncover their mysterious family past. So that's those are the books that made it to the Sci-Fi Goodreads Choice Awards this year. The average rating of all of these books is a 3.9, which is not great. And the average number of ratings of all of these books is 9,800. And if you take out the compound, which was by far the outlier in terms of number of ratings in this category, the average number of ratings for all of these other books is 7,100 ratings. So definitely we have a popularity problem in the popularity contest that is the Goodreads Choice Awards sci-fi category. So that's it. Those are the plot summaries for the sci-fi books. Again, if you've read any of these books and you think they're worth my time, I would love to hear what you think about them down in the comments below, or if you've read any of them and think they're terrible, please tell me so that I can avoid picking them up in the future. But I would love to know your thoughts. Do you think there were any significant snubs in either fantasy or sci-fi? Were there books you were expecting to see that didn't make it? Are you surprised by any of the books that did? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for tuning in and hanging out with me for a little bit today. As always, please be kind, read more books, and hit the subscribe button down below. And if you want to share with me what you're voting for in each of these categories, I'd love to hear that too. I'll see you next time.